What's going on, guys? Apathetic here with all your tips, recommendations, and everything in between. And today we are talking about Nova Warp and the changes to Handheld Supernova. So just Middle Tree Void or Attunement of Fission as a whole. I'm gonna talk about the changes to Handheld Supernova, talk about if that's still good, and the changes to Nova Warp, and if that super is now more viable in the Crucible. Let's get into it. Starting with Handheld Supernova, a lot of people were concerned when the changes came out regarding Handheld Supernova. They thought Middle Tree Void Walker is going to be dead, no one's going to want to use it. Granted, that was a time when Nova Warp was in a lot worse spot than it is now, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But using Handheld Supernova now, it's definitely still very, very powerful. The biggest thing I noticed when using it, because what I made sure to do before the season ended was use a lot of Middle Tree Void so I can kind of compare and contrast on my usage. And the biggest thing I notice is the activation time and the reduced range. So you'll notice, even though it's only 0.6 seconds to increase that, to add it to the activation time, you're gonna notice it. You're gonna have to make sure you're really choosing your spots and trying to anticipate when someone's gonna push you. You're trying to guess when they're gonna push you, because if you activate it too late, now it's slow enough to where if you activate it too late, someone's gonna be able to push you as you're mid activation and you're not gonna be able to get it off. So that's been one thing I will admit I've had to adjust with using Handheld Supernova, is that activation time and getting the time it just right. But also, it's also nice, right? Because now when I time it right, it feels more rewarding. I know a lot of people who use Handheld Supernova aren't looking for something that's skillful or rewarding necessarily. They just want something that's an easy, quick kill. Or maybe I'm wrong, doubt it. But I like that there's like a timing to it. I have to make sure I really know my class well or subclass well to time that activation. And as I said, the other thing I really noticed was the reduced range. You definitely cannot map people anymore with Handheld Supernova. And that's also probably due to the decreased blast radius of the bolts, but definitely still has great range on it, still very, very lethal. It also can still kill 2 or more guardians at once. I've already had a couple plays where I was able to kill 2 people, but you're just in a much closer vicinity. I also haven't noticed very much like the self damage. I haven't killed myself with Handheld Supernova or anything. Maybe that's just because I use it a little bit differently. I don't really rush in with it. I use it almost defensively, and that's how I really see Handheld Supernova being used now. Very defensively against like shotgun rushers or maybe someone with Bastion. It's gonna be very, very useful. I could also see it very useful in trials when maybe you have 2 guys together and they're getting a res. You're gonna most likely be able to easily kill one of them and then leave the other one very, very weak. So I know a lot of people were concerned about Handheld Supernova. What was gonna be the state of it once the update came out in Season of the Worthy? Guys, do not worry, it is still super powerful. You're just gonna have to, one, take note of that activation time, as I mentioned, and really time it right and really adjust your muscle memory to get that timing down. And also not try to be so thirsty with it. You know, the range is not the same as it was. It's not terrible, but it's not OP, which I like. It feels balanced. It feels like a good change. You're not getting mapped anymore and you're not mapping people. So still just as viable in my opinion, but you can't use it across map now. So just keep that in mind as you're practicing and rebuilding your muscle memory with this ability. Getting into Nova Warp, the super for Middle Tree Voidwalker, and this is the real reason I feel people were so concerned or against nerfs coming to Handheld Supernova. They felt that if Handheld Supernova got nerfed, that this particular subclass would be complete garbage. They felt that when it got nerfed a couple of seasons ago, it was way too harsh, and I would agree. Originally, Nova Warp, when it got nerfed, was just destroyed, and even last season was not very strong. The charge up of the super was very slow. Felt like very often you would just get killed out of your super. But fast forward to now, guys, and this super is back, in my opinion. Only subtle changes, but sometimes it's the small things that make the difference. The biggest things being, in my opinion, the reduced cost of Dark Blink by 12.5% and the increased super duration is all what made the difference here. And the reason being, the biggest problem I felt this super had originally was its mobility, which just moves so slow. The charge up was super slow and you just felt very vulnerable. Now with Dark Blink and that cost being reduced by 12.5%, now your mobility essentially feels like it's back, and your super feels longer because they increased the overall duration, but then they reduced how much it costs when you dark blink, right? So now you can blink around, dodge those sniper shots or those revoker shots, which is what they will most likely be in trials, and you can just go to town. I personally feel that Nova Warp is now, I don't know if I'd really say top tier, but it's up there, guys. It's definitely a top 3 super in my opinion. I personally like it a lot more than Dawnblade, especially if you're running top tree Dawnblade with Icarus Dash. I feel like a lot of times, maybe it's just me, but I miss my swords because I got so used to that tracking on bottom tree. But with Nova Warp, I feel like I'm so mobile. I have so much dodging capability, especially when I imagine in the 3v3 scenario, right? A lot of the things I'm thinking about 3v3 with Trials coming this Friday. I'm thinking about what would be the best thing for that environment. And right now I feel Middle Tree Void is going to be perfect for it. You have Handheld Supernova, you have this ability that can basically shut down, get that first pick or shut down the res, so that's going to be very, very useful. And then now you have this super that is going to allow you to make sure you can dodge in and out of cover, dodge those sniper headshots to prevent yourself from getting shut down. Your super gives you health regeneration on kill. It has an AoE effect, so you don't have to worry about aiming super well. You can kind of just pop it over and over again, and it's pretty decent at shutting down other supers as well because you can create that distance. And something else I don't believe they mentioned in the original patch notes is they increased the dark matter regeneration from 10 to 14%. So a small thing, but again, all these little changes make a big difference. Overall, guys, I have to say I'm very impressed with Nova Warp's performance in PvP thus far. Maybe in a combination as well with the sandbox changes, and there's not so much like one hit kill crazy stuff, and a lot of the super powerful range stuff has gotten nerfed, which may have opened up room for Nova Warp to breathe just as a super. But even the super itself, I wasn't super excited about the changes they made. I was like, okay, it might make it a little bit better, but it feels night and day to me. I'm super excited to give this super or this subclass a try in Trials. I'm sure it's gonna be very, very effective. Will it overtake top tree Dawnblade with Icarus Dash? I don't know. That dash is really, really strong, and that neutral game is really, really strong, but I could argue that the neutral game of Attunement of Fission or a Middle Tree Voidwalker is just as strong as well. It's such a powerful middle tree. The melee can sometimes one hit kill based on some people's resiliences from what I saw. Obviously with light level that'll vary, but that's the one thing I would say about this, guys, is Middle Tree Voidwalker is super strong. I feel like Nova Warp is back. Let me know what you guys think below in the comments. Are you enjoying it? Do you notice a difference? Do you feel it's stronger? I definitely notice it's stronger. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Also, don't forget to follow me on mixer.com/apathetic if you want to hang out and talk Destiny, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.